everyone that's in the room. We feel a great deal of gratitude and humility that we have Elder Donna here to welcome us in a good way from Comox First Nations. A few faces here, I think. Yeah, good to see so many here tonight at this meeting. Welcome to the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. I am Donna Mitchell, Comox First Nation elder. I come from a long line of hereditary chiefs. My parents were both residential school survivors. I was part of the 60s scoop. When I lived here, I only got to grade 6. And then I went to Nanaimo and Vancouver vocational school site. Because even back in the day, the teachers were prejudiced. And just last week, I went to our hospital here because I keep saying to everyone that 1957, I had a sister, Bernadine. We went to visit her for 6 days, and they said she died from a crib death. But our hospital was run by priests and nuns back in the day, so anyway, they put the baby in an incinerator. She never came home. She's not on our banned list, but all the elders know that my mother had the baby, and everybody knows what happened. And how my mother found out was on the party line, if anybody remembers the party line back in the day. So a week ago, I went to the hospital up here and told them I'd like to come in to do an in-service or talk to some of the RNs and about racism, prejudice, and I want a letter of an apology. And what a perfect place for me to wind up today. Like, I'd like a letter from you guys too. But I thought, well, I'm going to do my rounds. And I went to the church already last year, the Catholic Church, and told them we want a letter. And he had to go through a whole bunch of people, whatever. The hospital hasn't replied to me yet. I phoned them 3 times last week. But I'm busy this week till Friday, doing blessings and stuff. So I'll just message her and get back to her and tell her I need that letter. When I was 9 in 1958 or 59, I fell off the wharf in Comox. This little girl wanted to hold my hand, and I backed up with my hands behind my back. Her mom was hollering at me, but I didn't know if she was mad at me because I was only 6. No, it's 9. And anyway, my father jumped in after me, and I thought he was an octopus, and I almost drowned him. And he was in the hospital for about 2 hours, got his stomach pumped and out. They kept me for 1 week, doing all kinds of tests, needles, everything to me. And they had me restrained, your hands and legs restrained, and that happened to me in Nanaimo Hospital as well. That's why I went to the hospital, because I did a blessing for them, and I went, oh my God, I said, I want to talk to the head honch. I want to talk to somebody where I'm going to get answers. Because I like to stir the pot. Like I like to get to the bottom of it, like, gosh, I think the First Nations have had quite the shit kicking ever since I can remember, like I just turned 73 last week, and it just feels like I've been out fighting and given people like red dresses and orange shirts so that people don't forget what happened to us. Because I don't think we deserved it, but who am I to say to sit around with a bunch of non-First Nations and they say, no, you're First Nations, you're out of here. And my partner here, he was a residential school survivor, and at the school they broke his eardrums, and he's got to wear hearing aids now. He's got holes in his ears. And anyway, that's my story for, and this truth and reconciliation thing that's going on, I call it truth and racism, because it's bringing everybody against each other again. And that's what I see happening. I look and I watch. But Monday will be here and gone, but thank you for all wearing your orange shirts tonight, because it means a lot. Thank you.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you so very much to Elder Donna Mitchell for sharing with us her story, and to remind us that truth and reconciliation does not just occur on one day of the year. So I'm sure we're all touched by that in a great way. It's hard to follow a business meeting after that. But I just wanted to share a few pieces for our guests. If anybody needs to use the public washroom, if you come in the main door and go directly down the hall, it's immediately to your left as soon as you are about to hit a door that's going into offices. So it'll be on your left-hand side. Going out this way, you would just go through the doors near reception and again turn to your right, and then it would be to your left. If for some reason we needed to evacuate the building due to an emergency, you would come in the same way that, you would leave the same way that you came in, and that would be through the main entrance. But there are also, through the doors that are on this side of the room, a long hallway, and at each end of the hallway there are exits. Just wanted to share that. So incredible to be able to start this meeting, which I don't typically get to do, in this beautiful new building on this beautiful territory. So thank you for that as well. And I think we will just move to calling the meeting to order, and that is at 7:07 p.m. We will move to adoption of the agenda, which is on our first page, and we have a motion on the agenda.
I'd like to move to amend the agenda that the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley adopt the September 24th, 2024 board meeting agenda as presented, with adjustments as required due to the timed agenda item.
Okay, moved by Trustee Christy Maysach. Do we have somebody? Janice Payton. All those in favor? Carried. We can now move on to our board elections, and we will do the first one of the evening, which will be our election of our board chair. Just want to share a little bit of information about our elections. So voting tonight during our meeting will be conducted using ballots, which allows each trustee to cast a single, anonymous, and secure ballot per their vote. Associate Superintendents Sean, I'm going to do it, Lamoureux and Joe Heslip will act as our scrutineers, so thank you to them. If necessary, they will tally the ballots cast in each vote, and they will advise me, Secretary Treasurer, of the results of the election. Following each election, or actually following all of the elections, we will then ask for a motion to delete the ballots. So our first order of business, again, is our election of our chairperson. I will call for nominations for the position of chair. Sarah Jane Howe.
I'd like to nominate Michelle Waite.
Trustee Waite, do you accept?
With thanks to my nominator, I accept.
I'm going to call for a second time nominations for the person of chairperson, position of chairperson. Okay, I'm going to do one final call for a third time and final time. Are there any other nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none. Being that there are no further nominations for the position of chairperson of the board, nominations are closed, and Trustee Waite will be declared chairperson of the board by acclamation. Congratulations to our Chair Waite. At this point, I will hand the meeting off to our chair. Great spots.
We're gonna need some more visibility.
I see how you helped Chair Waite, but Carrie, you're over here. Oh.
See the duties as assigned for the superintendent? So we have a few more to go through. Thank you all, and thank you to the trustees for the trust that you put in me for the work that we need to do together over the next year. All right, so I would like to call for the first time for the nominations for the position of vice chairperson of the board for school district number 71, Comox Valley, for 2024-2025. Lots of hands all at once. Steve McConnell-Keen.
I would love to nominate Sarah Jane Howe, Trustee Howe.
Trustee Howe, do you accept the nomination?
I appreciate the nomination, and I accept. Thank you.
I'm going to call for the second time for the nominations for vice chairperson. And I'm going to call for the third time for the nominations for vice chairperson. I declare nominations closed. And as there is one nomination that's been accepted, I declare that Trustee Sarah Jane Howe has been elected by acclamation for the position of Vice Chairperson of School District Number 71, Comox Valley, for 2024-25. Congratulations. And you are welcome to make your way up here.
Oh, I got a new seat.
Oh, yeah.
I really would have accepted if I'd known that.
You had way less to carry than me, it looks like.
Jeremy's not helping me carry.
I was waiting. I was poised.
So we have two more positions and two alternate positions to be elected this evening. The first one is the election of the BC School Trustee Association Provincial Council Representative. And so I would like to call for the first time for nominations for the position of BCSTA Provincial Council Representative for 2024-25.
Sure.
Trustee Maysack.
I would like to nominate Trustee Shannon Aldinger.
Trustee Aldinger, would you accept the nomination?
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And I'm going to call for the second time for nominations for the position of BCSTA Provincial Council Representative for 2024-25. And for the third and final call, I'll ask for nominations for the position of BCSTA Provincial Council Representative for 2024-25. Seeing no further hands, I declare nominations closed. And congratulations, Trustee Goldinger, you have been acclaimed to the position of BCSTA Provincial Council Representative for 2024-25. All right, so next is the election of the BCSTA Provincial Council Rep Alternate. So I'm going to open the floor for nominations for the BCSTA Provincial Council Representative Alternate for 2024-25. Trustee Caton.
I'll nominate Christy Mesa, please.
Oh, Trustee Masak, will you accept the nomination?
I do, thank you very much.
Okay. And I'm going to call for the second time for nominations for the BCSTA Provincial Council Representative Alternate for 2024-25. For the third and final call, this is the third and final call for nominations for the BCSTA Provincial Council Representative Alternate for 2024-25. The nominations are closed, and I would like to congratulate Trustee Masak for being elected by acclamation for the position of BCSTA Provincial Council Representative Alternate for 2024-25. Congratulations. Okay, so now we're moving on to I might get the acronym wrong, British Columbia Public Sector Employer Association Trustee Representative, also known as BCPC, and I'll refer to it as BCPC for the rest of the election. So I'm going to call for nominations for the position of BCPC Trustee Representative for 2024-25. Vice Chairperson Howe.
I'd like to nominate Chelsea McConnell-Keane.
Trustee McConnell-Keane, will you accept the nomination?
Sure will, thank you.
I'm going to call for the second time for nominations for the position of BCPC Trustee Representative for 2024-25. And for the third and final time, call for nominations for the position of BCPC Trustee Representative for 2024-25. I'll declare the nominations closed and would like to announce and congratulate Trustee McConnell-Keane for the position of BCPC Trustee Representative for 2024-2025 by acclamation. Congratulations. And next is the election for the BCPC Trustee Representative Alternate. I'm going to open the floor for nominations for the BCPC Trustee Representative Alternate for 2024-25. Trustee Masak.
I would like to nominate Trustee Caton for the BCPC alternate.
Thank you. Trustee Caton, do you accept the nomination?
If no one else is interested, yes, I would love to.
I'm going to open the floor for the second time for nominations for the BCPC Trustee Representative Alternate for 2024-25. And this is the third and final call for nominations for the BCPC Trustee Representative Alternate for 2024-25. I declare nominations closed, and I am announcing that Trustee Caton has been elected by acclamation for the BCPC Trustee Representative Alternate for 2024-25. Congratulations, Trustee Caton. And there were no elections, so there are no ballots to be destroyed. So that concludes the election portion of the meeting tonight. Sorry. Okay, great. Want to make sure I usually fumbled this badly, but I a little bit better. All right. Yes.
Yes, I'd just like to make a motion. We talked about it earlier with respect to the timing of our meeting. As you know, our meetings normally end at 9 PM, but we have a very, very fulsome agenda, and everything on here needs to have the due diligence of our attention and our conversations. So the motion is that we move that the Board of Education's meeting be extended to 10 PM if necessary to conduct the business of tonight's meeting.
Okay, and can you just say that again to make sure that the recorder has it?
Okay. I move that the board meeting tonight be extended to 10 PM if necessary to conduct the necessary meeting, board business as required.
Is there a seconder? Trustee Isak. And just as a point of discussion, this motion would need to be unanimous based on our board procedural bylaws. Is there any discussion?
Start with the discussion. While I don't hope we don't stay till 10 o'clock, but the reality is that everything on here, as I mentioned before, is very important, especially we have the financial discussions, we have other discussions. And in order for us to be open and transparent in the work that we do, I don't think we need to rush through our business. I think we need to take time and to start due diligence. So that's my intent to moving our meeting till 10 o'clock if necessary.
No further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, and that's carried. And we will do our best to give everything the time that it takes. And I'm hoping to include a stretch break at some point in the meeting, recognizing that many of you sat all day and that you're here tonight. And that we're all here tonight. For those of us that are here tonight, those of you that are watching from your couch can do it as well. But just being mindful of everybody's health. So we have the first motion, page 2.
That the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley adopt the minutes from the June 25th, 2024 regular public board meeting as presented.
Thank you, Vice Chairperson Howe, seconded by Trustee McConnell-Kane. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no unfinished business on our agenda this evening, and we have record of 2 in-camera. First, June 25th, 2024, special in-camera meetings, and June 25th, 2024, regular in-camera meeting. Now here's the part where it's the board chair's verbal report, and there's no written report in the agenda packages because we never know who's going to be the board chairperson during the meeting that we have our elections. But I would like to share just a couple of things. And first off is welcome to our new space. And you may notice the walls look a little different than our other board space. We have some beautiful art that we are waiting to put in place. But the most important thing that we've been doing for the past month is regarding students in our classrooms and in our space. And so we will get there, but our priority, we believe, is where our priority needs to be in all the work we do, and it's for the students. And so we look forward to the transformation of this space and making it uniquely our own, in I would say in priority order as appropriate. I would also like to share that Trustee Leslie is away, and she knew she was going to be away, and so by way of our process, couldn't be nominated for any positions, and she knew that, and she was okay with that. So in case anybody's wondering why there aren't 7 trustees here tonight and where that 7th trustee is, we wish her all the best in what she's doing right now. And I'm sure she looks forward to returning and watching this recorded video of our meeting tonight. And lastly, I would say it was probably, we started our meeting in a really great way tonight, with Donna being able to attend and share with us the truth that Donna is unabashed in sharing in her work she does, and her commitment and the important work that she does as an elder in our community. And I know she's gone, but I would just like to honor that, and it was important to share it. And we're at the beginning of a school year. We're already however many days in. A lot has happened. We're looking forward to the information that will be shared tonight and getting through our extensive board package. That's all I have to say in terms of the board chairperson's verbal report. We have no presentations and delegations in this section of the meeting, though we do have other opportunities where you will hear from folks that aren't sitting at this table here tonight. I would like to share that our next Open Committee of the Whole meeting is October the 8th, 2024 at 7 p.m. here. And we are still working on that agenda topic and hope to get that out to everyone soon. I will now turn the meeting over to the superintendent for the next few items on the agenda.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And what a privilege it is to sit at this table in this new space with everyone here this evening. I prepared these remarks in advance. You don't know what might happen, but certainly what happened when Donna started the meeting tonight was reminding us of the importance of truth. We're all intentionally wearing orange shirts tonight, as this is a week leading up to the Day of Truth and Reconciliation that's been set aside. And it's time for our students and staff to engage deeply with the history of residential schools and to honor the resilience of survivors and their communities. And tonight I wanted to read words that are not mine, but excerpts that were taken from the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, and then I'll finish with some words of my own. Reconciliation requires a new vision based on a commitment to mutual respect. It requires an understanding that the most harmful impacts of residential schools have been the loss of pride and self-respect of Aboriginal people and the lack of respect that non-Aboriginal people have been raised to have for their Aboriginal neighbors. Reconciliation is not an Aboriginal problem. It is a Canadian one. Despite the coercive measures that the government adopted, it failed to achieve its policy goals. Although Aboriginal peoples and cultures have been badly damaged, they continue to exist. Aboriginal people have refused to surrender their identity. It was the former students, the survivors of Canada's residential schools, who placed the residential school issue on the public agenda. Their efforts led to the negotiation of the Indian Residential School Settlement Agreement that mandated the establishment of a Residential School Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. The survivors acted with courage and determination, and we should do no less. It is time to commit to a process of reconciliation by establishing a new and respectful relationship where we restore what must be restored, repair what must be repaired, and return what must be returned. Reconciliation must inspire Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal peoples to transform Canadian society so that our children and grandchildren can live together in dignity, peace, and prosperity on these lands we now share. I acknowledge that this is not an easy week for many staff, for students, and members of community. And as we acknowledge the truth of the many historical and current inequities in our education system, and as we commit to further dismantle systemic racism as we work to ensure that every child matters in every classroom every day, I want to declare both our collective and my personal commitment to work in ways that may help repair centuries of broken promises. Startup. Startup has been very positive. And I want to thank our families, staff, and students for the effort that goes into getting the new school year off and running. And I would like to take a moment to thank our staff who worked over the summer in advance of this school year, cleaning, preparing equipment, equipping, staffing, and maintaining schools that led to a successful start. There are so many people and so much work that goes on behind the scenes to make our facilities ready for students and staff and families. Some of you may have seen the press release that came out this week that there's some really great news on the childcare front. And we are thrilled that a brand new childcare facility is coming to GP Vanier Secondary School. The new facility, which will replace the current one, will provide high quality, affordable childcare for 108 children, including infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and before and after school care. This center will offer a safe and nurturing environment supporting not only local families, but also students through the Young Parent Program, which helps young parents balance their education and child rearing responsibilities. This facility should be opening in early 2026. This time of the year, people are very interested about how our student enrollment is coming along. And this count is super important in determining our overall funding levels for the rest of the school year. Associate Superintendent Dixon will be sharing and providing a more in-depth look at our fall enrollment later in this meeting. But I can confirm that it appears we will be growing modestly again this school year. In recognition of our growing community, we will be working this fall to update our existing boundary maps to ensure that they more accurately reflect new and future development. While this process is not anticipated to displace or relocate any current students because of these adjustments, it will help ensure that we are ready to meet the expected growth over the next 5 to 10 years. Our October public board meeting will have a more fulsome presentation, and an interactive feedback portal for parents and community will be available for feedback in the next few weeks. I want to acknowledge that last week, our schools held Consent Awareness Week, which is a time dedicated to reflecting, championing, and celebrating the role of consent as a foundation in all relationships, whether personal, professional, or within our communities. And I'd like to acknowledge our schools for engaging in these important discussions, activities, and reflections throughout the week. Quite frankly, September is super busy in our schools because guess what else is happening? Terry Fox runs. And this fall, all of our schools are participating again in the annual Terry Fox runs, continuing the tradition of honoring Terry's legacy of hope and resilience. Students and staff across the district are lacing up to raise funds and awareness for cancer research, embodying the spirit of community and perseverance that Terry Fox inspired. As we think about September, Comox Valley Schools, like all other districts in the province, introduced new cell phone guidelines around the use of the personal digital devices within school premises. These changes, aligned with provincial guidelines, aim to enhance the learning environment by minimizing digital distractions. And I would like to thank our families, our students, and our staff for really embracing those changes and for helping make that transition around how we use technology in our schools go smoothly so far. And then lastly, I just wanted to share some exciting news about student representatives that came to the board office last week from Glacier View, Nides, Lake Trail, GP Vanier, Isfeld, Alatsi, and Highland to the first meeting of our district student voice. It's inspiring to hear our students' unique perspectives and thoughtful insights on key issues that are affecting our schools. And one of the things that I'm so grateful whenever we talk to students about issues, they are so quick to offer suggestions. I think there's a lesson there for all of us, I'm sure, but just the fact that they're so quick and thoughtful about different ways that their experience can be improved. And I appreciate too that we have senior students looking just to ensure that next students coming up have improved school experience. And so we're looking forward to that continued work with them throughout the school year. And then I think I can, with permission, move right on to the presentation about the strategic plan. This is material that I think most of the people in this room are quite familiar with, having not only contributed to the actual writing of the plan, but have seen the plan presented a number of times. So now these are, this is, and it says strategic plan up in the top left corner, but I really want to clarify that this is the education component of the strategic plan. That all of our departments and all of our schools will be in alignment, and that will be the fullness of the strategic plan. In addition, what you will not see here tonight are all of the different ways that this plan will be evaluated, nor the professional learning plan that will support it. So those pieces are still in development, but what we do have tonight to share is the final draft of the value statement, the purpose statement, the vision statement, the goal that the strategic plan addresses, and the design principles of the strategic plan. So these are values that have been brought out to the public before, but essentially with the STEMs, they're learning, equity, relationship, safety, and integrity, as well as a meaningful truth and reconciliation commitment. And I think what's important here is this is also the values that the public can hold us accountable to, that this should be reflected in all the ways in which we interact, in the ways that we conduct our business. The purpose statement of creating safe, equitable learning environments that lift each learner to thrive, to grow, and to share their unique gifts, and ultimately to create a system that's compassionate, connected, and personalized for all. So there's some aspirational pieces there, but just the idea of really finding ways to uncover the gifts of each learner and finding ways to ensure that they can thrive. So the learning goal is really to enhance each student's development of the core competencies over time. And it's interesting how intentional that trustees were in setting this goal, which is really saying that learning is the center of our universe in School District 71, and working to ensure that every child is given every opportunity to increase their understandings, their competencies, and hopefully fundamentally improving the trajectory of their lives. With that in mind, and many of you will be familiar with the sort of creation story of the strategic plan. A lot of community data was looked at, research was looked at, and the following design principles were reflective of what community wanted to see, as well as what is based in research in terms of improving student outcomes. So you will see here decolonizing and indigenizing, inclusion, personalized learning, student-centered assessment, social emotional learning, experiential learning, flexible learning environments, digitally enhanced learning, and land-based learning. Now, each of those could be an evening, so we are going through that fairly quickly tonight, but to recognize that those are the design principles that we want to support learning plans around, to ensure that our educators have access to the tools to ensure that those design principles can be reflected in our classrooms. And when I say classrooms, I should clarify, we have a significant number of students whose classroom is a virtual one through our NIDES Navigate program. And so all of the learning environments can benefit from these design principles. So that's a pretty fast way through it, I think, because we've gone through this piece a number of times. But this is just to show that although there's 9 distinct design principles, they do weave together and form, they're not all distinct from each other. And so this is a picture to try to represent how they are actually literally woven together.
I move my pages all around. So, are there any questions or comments from the trustees? So, Trustee Rasak?
I was hoping to pass the motion.
Okay, we can move the motion and then see if there's any questions. First, seconded. Sure.
That the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley approve the values, learning goal, purpose statement, vision statement, and design principles as part of the draft 2024 to 2029 strategic plan as presented in the PowerPoint.
Yes, that is seconder, Trustee Hamel-Keane. Yes, seconding. Great.
Sorry.
Wonderful. Well, that's okay. Questions or comments? Trustee Baldinger?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I was wondering if you might be able to expand just a little bit on where we're at on the evaluation process. I know that's still it's still ongoing, as you said, but what kind of time frame we're looking at to have a better sense of how we'll evaluate the plan going forward?
I think so. Where we're at is we have probably, if not more, close to 100 different ways to determine how students are doing in terms of improving in their core competencies. Some of the work that was done on the mountain was actually looking at all of the different data points that we currently collect and seeing which ones were in direct alignment to measure progress on the strategic plan. So we have those in place. What we didn't do on the mountain is the work that needs to get done, which is around not just the questions in some of the data pieces that we collect, but some of the ways in which we could use report cards and other school-based data to align with that. So the recommendation that we took from the mountain and our facilitator was to create a assessment team, which hasn't been done yet. And I think that those internal pieces that can really help tell the story of how we're doing will be developed this fall.
Thank you. Trustee Caton?
So thank you for that. I have just two quick questions, and I think you alluded to one of them with respect to our online NIDES Navigate students. And I'm wondering, percentage-wise, how we are in relations to our brick and mortar students and the impact this will also have on their learning, because they actually are from various parts of the province, if not parts of the world, depending on where they are with their parents, because they're our BC curriculum. And the second one was, we talked about gathering a committee or group together some point during the year, like some of the individuals that were at the mountain during the writing process, and sitting down as a team and reviewing the process of where we are. And is that part of what next with that and that communication and that community engagement as we move forward through this transition, as we adopt our plans?
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple things to start. When we talk about Navigate NIDES, we have schools and learning interfaces across the province. What I really appreciate about the design principles is that they're design principles that are universal and applicable in all of those different settings. What I also appreciate is the intentionality that every educator can see in the entry point, something that's already happening really well in a stretch area to grow into. So I'm very confident that those design principles will be equally beneficial in any learning environment. In fact, I would argue that those design principles and the values will be applicable in all of our departments as well. And that's where we'll be able to see that alignment and coherence across the district. Yes, there is a commitment to ongoing, at the minimum, there's an ongoing commitment to have annual review in the public about how we're doing with the strategic plan. There was and is an interest, I believe, from people that were part of that writing process to review both the assessment piece as well as the professional learning plan, and to be part of the iterative piece moving forward. I think one of the places where we would fail is if we deliver this and say the strategic plan has now been completed. This is just the first step, is getting approval that this is what we are, this is the direction from trustees. The alignment and the ongoing review of that will be where this really comes to life. And I think that there is a acknowledgement that even though this is written and it'll have nice pictures and hopefully all be spelt correctly and everything else, that it's an iterative document that's alive and will adapt as we need to. So there will be a commitment to reviewing it.
Seeing no further hands, all those in favor of the motion? It's carried. And again, a shout out to every member of the writing team, every person who has put their input, scanned documents, found the appropriate pictures, created that amazing document. Thank you. It's a testament to this plan that we're looking forward to executing together over the next years together.
If I could just add to just some gratitude to both Craig Sorokin, our Manager of Communications, and to Brendan Gallagher, our web and graphic designer behind the scenes, just their ability not only to capture ideas and images, but their willingness to iterate and explore over and over. So just some folks behind the scenes to express gratitude to. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we are moving on to page 3 of our agenda package and to the Secretary Treasurer portion of the meeting. So Secretary Treasurer McVeigh, over to you for the 2023-24 accumulated operating surplus reserve and restricted funds briefing.
Thank you, Chair Waite. Yes, so on page 17 and 18 is a briefing note with respect to our 23-24 accumulated operating surplus reserve and internally restricted funds. I'm not going to read the entire briefing note. I'll just summarize by saying that the district ended the 23-24 school year or fiscal year in a surplus position of $5.2 million. And in accordance with our board policy, $2.896 million of that accumulated surplus is restricted. And on page 18 is the list of items that have been restricted. This leaves an unrestricted surplus of $2.386 million. That surplus is really our reserve, our contingency, and represents about 2% of annual operating expenses, which again, that's within board policy, which requires us to maintain something between 1.5 and 3%. So I will just open that up to questions if there are any.
I'm happy to move the motion that the Board of Education of School District 71, Comox Valley, receive the 2023-2024 accumulated operating surplus reserve and internally restricted funds briefing note dated September 24th, 2024, as presented.
Ellinger. I would like to comment that I appreciated the level of detail in this that isn't able to be shown in the ministry statements as they are populated. So it was really helpful for me to see the bigger breakdown. So thank you for that. Seeing no further comments, all of those in favor, indicate. That motion is carried. So now we get to the, I'm going to say, fun part of the agenda. We've got a little bit of time, but I don't want to overlap. So what I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to turn to our Secretary Treasurer, to page 32, to the trustee remuneration briefing note.
Thank you, Chair Waite. So this is just a reminder and for information only that at a meeting of the board that was held in October 24th of 2003, the board passed a motion that the Board of Education would increase the rates each subsequent July 1st by the BC Consumer Price Index, all items for the May to May comparison in respect of trustee remuneration. And on the information sheet, we, after
Carried, thank you. I should have asked, and I will ask now, the minor capital plan submission. Is 10 minutes sufficient? Okay, all right. Smiling probably for two reasons. So we will move back up to the agenda in the order for the 2025-26 minor capital plan submission briefing note with our Director of Operations, Molly Proudfoot.
Thank you very much. So really what we're seeing here is we're seeking approval for the submission of the 2025-26 minor capital plan due September 30th. So encompassed in the briefing note is just a description of our submission deadlines for both minor and major, as well as the different minor capital project programs that we plan to submit for this September. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them as far as the requests that we've included.
Just a clarification. These are really amazing and much needed things our district needs, but just because we submit it, there's no guarantee that we're going to get everything that we're asking for. And that's, am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, it's like asking for multiple gifts from Santa. So we've been fairly successful in the past, but yes, they are just requests. And you'll see that there is some carry forward from previous capital submissions from like unapproved project requests. So if we typically will still see a need for those, and we'll include them year over year until we are approved for them.
Are there any other questions or comments from trustees?
I'm happy to make a motion that in accordance with section 142.4 of the School Act, the Board of Education of School District number 71, Comox Valley, approve the minor capital program submission for 2025-26 as presented and outlined in the briefing note dated September 24th, 2024, titled 2025-26 minor capital program submission summary.
Zach, any further discussions? All those in favor, please indicate. And thank you very, very much for the report. So now my next question is the Aspen Park project, PowerPoint presentation and questions in 7 minutes.
I'm going for about 8 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Good idea.
We have a timed agenda item at 8 o'clock. So you have 7 minutes and
I got it.
you're an old hat. Yes. No doubt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll jump right in. Aspen Park expansion project. Brand new project that came up on rather short notice. So how did we get here with this? Early 2020s, very rapid growth in the area. It was just a year ago that the submission went in to have an expansion on the list, and we put it in as number 2 behind a couple of other key things that we thought in there, Valley View, Isfeld, and others. But in April of 2024, received a phone call from the ministry saying, you're going to get it. And it was a surprise, but a happy surprise, a happy Christmas present. By June 26th of 2024, the capital project funding agreement was signed, which was the official green light. These are really interesting projects because the Ministry of Education is trying to create school spaces very quickly across the province. So they have a number of objectives with this. In this particular project, it's to create 11 prefabricated classrooms. Prefabricated is really a critical word, creating 270 new spaces in the district. And by doing this, rather than having a business case process that takes 3 years up front, they say, we're going to give you $1 million per classroom to create these classrooms. You guys sort out the design and the rest. Plus there's some risk money per classroom. Target completion September 2025, which is exceptionally fast, probably 50 to 60% faster than a typical build. And you have to hit their scope details, which are this needs to last, it needs to be efficient, the correct size, And one of the really interesting things, occupant health and safety in mind, which really means add some cooling, and that is have good HVAC. So guiding principles, banking on the work that has been done over the last short while on the strategic plan, had to come up with some priorities for this. Number 1, learning. Number 2, schedule. Number 3, budget. This building is going to be like every modular we end up with in the district. It's going to be here forever, right? So even though it's a prefabricated building that we're to create quickly, we need to make some really purposeful decisions around quality and upfront design, even though it has to happen fast. What is prefabricated? This is a picture from Souk that is working in the same project. This is them somewhere around June or May. That's prefabricated. Walls and bits of a building are assembled in a factory and brought on site to be put up. It happens very quickly. It's really open to interpretation. The ministry said, make it prefabricated. Typically, that's 2 things. Volumetric modulars, which is a really normal portable that we have that comes in as a finished box that's moved from the factory, or panelized, which is more like this, where you make all the pieces and stack them on a truck and bring them. We have opted for the panelized version for a number of different reasons. They're better at it and more mature for building. So right now, let's just quickly run through what Aspen Park Elementary looks like. It has a capacity for 364, 15 classrooms, 2 modulars, and it has a before and after school care building. It's been there for a long time. Current enrollment, I filled it out a little while ago. I phoned the school. They're actually at 385 and projected up to 406 by the end of the school year. I threw in a couple of floor plans. It's really a lot like Brooklyn. This one, they're built in and around the same time with a large double gymnasium and some significantly large classrooms. And it's stacked as 2-story. Where can we put an addition on this site? It's actually a really challenging site, even though it's a large one. So it left us with 3 options, west side, east side, or on the back of the field. We got rid of the field option very quickly. On the west side, we have the before and after school care and 2 modulars right now. We'd have to pick them up out of the way. East side is a preferred spot. Really actually works very well, even though, and that's the ball field and the town of Comox property right adjacent. So that's looking a little bit closer. That's where we would put this addition. It'll be 2 stories and very much look like a school building. It'll be detached, but we'll have a connecting overhead. This is the design. Left side is the first floor. Right side's the second floor. It's really hard to see, so color-coded. Green are the learning spaces. We have a total of 11 classrooms, just as designed. If where you see the word design in the yellow covered area, you're walking in from there, from the building, which is just further to the left, and you enter into a common space with a large staircase that goes up to the second floor. The yellow signifies outdoor learning space, and the blue is common learning spaces. We have a body break room and an inclusive ed space captured within this as well. And we have some flexible learning spaces, which is part of our strategic plan too. On the first floor, those classrooms to the right of the entrance, there's a movable wall there so you can make one large room, create some really interesting educational opportunities. And upstairs, the first classroom, again on that west side, has a rolling garage door that will lead out to that blue space so you can spill out and have some common learning space. And I'd be happy on some other day to sit down with some plans and really walk through it so you can have a careful look. I think it's an excellent design. It's really going to be like a true school. You know, I think it has an opportunity. The educators at the school are super excited about creating clusters and other opportunity. This is just a quick rendering from the outside, whereas if you're looking from the parking lot, where that overhang is, we envision, this is a school that predominantly is fed from the Comox First Nation, having a great opportunity to have an Indigenous connection through a mural right on that overhang, and then lots of stuff, opportunity on the inside. The upper rendering is like looking from the hillside where the ball diamond is. You can see the outdoor covered spaces on both sides, which creates some outdoor learning opportunity. So our construction timeline, super aggressive. We're doing progressive permits. I'll just bash through here. We're going to get this done by August 29th, 2025 in the perfect world. So we're doing permits. We have one underway now. We're basically working on design, then we'll get other permits going. I've met with the town. They're saying, yes, we can do this for you. We have mobilization on site. We're meeting regularly with the ministry. I have spoken with the school staff so that they understood what was coming. We'll meet with the PAC soon. Our building permit is in. A retaining wall starts soon. And we are just go time. Construction management firm is hired. It's an exciting project. And it's really, really interesting to try to make it happen in a year. I think we'll get there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I didn't introduce you, Mr. Hasselgrave, consultant, working in conjunction with our director of operations. Thank you very much. It is 8:01, and this is important work. So Trustee Caton.
This is just a really quick question and a concern. You're adding 220 new student spaces.
270.
270, that one's there. And it's great. But the library, the gym, the inner on the school there, you're adding 200 students, but what are we doing for the library and the other?
So we did an analysis of the design date sheet. Because it was a former middle school, larger hallways, larger library, double gymnasium, so that actually all of those spaces, we did a comparison if we bulked the numbers up and they all fit. So it's an excellent question, though, and was a concern of ours as well.
Thank you. I would like to leave time for any other trustee who may have a question for that trustee. Zach?
I just want to check, is this the first time that our district has looked at a prefab building like this, where the portions, the walls have been, I know we've got obviously portables that are built inside. So this is the first time we've done something like this, a two-story prefab.
In a sense, no, because actually Queenish, Brooklyn, and Aspen in the day, which were tilt-up panel schools, in many respects were built this way. It's just a way the ministry is really trying to speed up so that we don't have a 5-year request to opening, kind of what we're experiencing with Cumberland, where it's going to be a long time. So they're just saying they did a trial last year with 7 schools. I've spoken to most of those districts, and now they're seeing if they can keep this going, but there's really no present experience. So it's exciting. We just want to get it right.
Yeah. Thank you. It was interesting that this was the funding in the means that they provided it to us. Mm-hmm. We didn't make this choice. The opportunity to accept an addition using this funding model.
Correct.
Okay, great. That's my memory of that. Yes. I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Ian. And we're excited to see one of those cameras with the time thing. How really fast it goes forward. And so now we will move to our timed event and check with the Magic Tech team to see if our audit team is ready and available for us. Hi, welcome.
Hello, Nora, how are you? Good. You can hear us okay then. So we've timed Lenora in on the agenda tonight. Last week, the audit committee met to review our financial statements and our audit findings report. Tonight, I am going to go over the financial statements, and Lenora, who is the lead audit engagement partner from KPMG, has joined us for a quick review of the auditor's report. We've timed this event tonight. It feels very official, but Lenora has been presenting for other districts as well. I think at least 3 of us tonight. So we were hoping to sneak her in. And so Lenora, I'm wondering if you have some slides that you'd like to share and if you want to go first, because I'm not sure if you actually have a meeting to get to after. Okay. Okay, so if it's okay with the board, I will go through the statements first and then Lenora can do her review and awesome. Thank you. So Josh, I guess I'll cast and
To the
bear with me here. Oh,
wonderful tech keeps his own
changing.
space.
An error, sorry. I was hoping to have the last code work, but
Oh, Candace is working on that. Just checking, is everybody okay with the temperature in the room? Generally, I know we'll always have a spectrum. Is everybody okay? Great.
It's like the old boardroom.
It's a little chilly. Spectrum. As long as we don't have blankets on.
Yeah, like,
You
hold on, see, make a statement.
you ready for us? Okay.
ready. So again, good evening, everyone. We met with the audit committee last week to look at our financial statements as well as our audit findings report. At the audit committee, the auditors did present an audit findings report to us, which was a clean report that basically communicated to us that there were no significant issues or errors that were noted and no changes required to our actual audit plan. So good news story. And then at the conclusion of the meeting, the committee did recommend that the Board of Education approve our financial statements as they were presented and to also receive the audit finding reports that was presented. So I am just going to jump into the financial statements themselves, looking at some of the key highlights. And before I look at the fund schedules in more detail, I just wanted to note that Statements 1 and 2 of the consolidated statements are in fact consolidated reports. So they're reporting on the results of 3 of our funds combined, which is our operating funds, our special purpose funds, as well as our capital fund. So the following slides, actually, I'm going to highlight the details of the funds separately because they really do show all the values that are contained in the consolidated financial statements. So starting with our operating fund, Schedule 2, which begins on page 67 of the agenda package. So for those of you who are attempting to follow along, I'm referring to the page numbers that show in the middle of the page. So you'll see page 67 in the right corner, it shows page 30. So it can be a bit confusing. There's a lot of page numbers there. And if you're electronically following online, it's page 70 of the PDF. So 67 is the page that we're looking at currently. So Schedule 2 is our operations, showing the revenues and expenses for the year in comparison to our prior year and our amended budget. The total operating revenues for the year were $124.78 million with expenses of $119.3, resulting in an operating surplus for the year of $5.48 million. So looking at the revenue section in greater detail, this slide does display and break down the actual operating revenues by their sources, with the largest contributor being the Ministry of Education and Childcare grants at a total of 96%. And the revenues that are detailed in Schedule 2 and 2A will be shown on page 67 as well as page 68 of the package. Provincial grants, other is the funding that we actually receive from Skilled Trades BC to support our trades programs and was formerly known as the Industry Training Authority. Tuitions are generated by the International Student Program. Our rentals and leases are generated through the use of our current facilities, and the investment income shown is the interest income earned on our cash balances. Other revenues, the $694,000 is funding that comes from our local First Nation. We also have an instructional cafeteria at GP Vanier, as well as some other miscellaneous grants, which may include things like credit card rebates, grants from other organizations as well. We received some funding from School District 92, the Nisga'a Nation, for providing some programming and instructional supports to the students of that district. When looking at how the district spends our operating dollars received, this slide shows the operating expenditures by function and program, which is detailed on Schedule 2C. And you'll see that schedule on pages 70 to 71 of the package. So the totals are shown on page 71. Percentages in the pie chart on the slide have been rounded, instruction being our largest category of program expenses at 82%, administration at 4%, operations and maintenance at 12%, and then transportation at 2%. The instruction program category includes expenses related to regular classrooms, as well as instructional supports, our careers programs, inclusive education, English language learning, international, Indigenous education, and our other student supports. Our district administration will include the human resources, payroll, finance, governance, and educational leadership. Operations and maintenance includes facilities, grounds maintenance, including custodial and utilities charges for our facilities. And transportation is our student busing contract costs. So if we take the same total value of our expenses, the 119.3 million, and slice them in a different way to show them by objects, you can see the breakdown of them between salaries, employee benefits, and the services and supplies. This information can be easily viewed on Schedule 2B, which is on page 69. So Schedule 2B is the same report formatting that we use when communicating with the board our year-end projections, and where we describe the variances between our budgeted and actual expenses for the year. So as you can see on this chart, the salaries and benefits comprise at least 86% of our operating budget, and service and supply costs coming in around 14%. So within our expenditures, when we are looking at the salaries, if we take a closer look at the employee groups that make up that total salary percentage, teachers are 60% of the total salary costs. Our principals and vice principals equate to 8%. The 9% for educational assistants does include our Indigenous support workers in that category. And then our 5% for substitutes includes both support staff and teachers teaching on call. 13% for support staff will include district clerical supports, youth and family support workers, tradespeople, cafeteria program workers, custodians, and then our other professionals at 5% includes most of the excluded staff members, such as our superintendent, secretary, treasurer, associates, directors, and other exempt staff from other departments, and also our trustees. So as mentioned in the briefing note that our secretary treasurer had reviewed moments ago, the district financial statements do show that we ended the school year in a surplus position within our operating fund. And that total surplus is the 5.28 million, with 2.896 being internally restricted. And then the remainder 2.3 is the board's contingency reserve. So the values of the internal restrictions are shown on note 18, and those details are found on page 62. So you'll see that in the note as well, the surplus has been restricted into categories as per the board's policy, and will include values for items that are restricted due to the nature of the funds, which really includes the monies that have been targeted for specific purposes. So those are typically the grants funded by the ministry, like Indigenous education carry forward amounts. We have restricted amounts for anticipated expenditures that are typically considered one time. So this year there's some expenses related to the move and renos related to this office and the previous location at 607 Cumberland Road. And then we have restrictions for operations spanning multiple years, which generally we have every year, our carryovers for purchase order commitments, any contributions to upcoming capital agreements that we've made with the ministry to fund, and other district program initiatives and agreements. So again, just looking quickly at the board's operating contingency reserve. As our Secretary Treasurer mentioned, the policy does describe for us that we should maintain a minimum of 1.5 to 3% of our actual operating expenses in the year. This year's amount does equate to 2% of the operating expenses for the 23-24 year, which lands us within our targeted minimum and maximum. So when you are looking at the financial statements, it is referred to in the ministry's template as an unrestricted surplus, even though we hold it for our own reserve needs. That is the terminology that they use. So the Special Purpose Fund, they are displayed in Schedules 3 and 3A, and these are our targeted grants that come with restrictions. So they can only be spent within the guidance that is provided, and so they have to be restricted for those purposes if they remain unspent at the end of the year. So these schedules do begin on pages 72 and 75. And here's just a list of the funds included in our district statement. So you will be familiar with some of these, most likely the Classroom Enhancement Fund, which is the largest, and then the Community Links, Affordability and Feeding Futures amounts that provide funds directly to our schools. So in addition to ministry special purpose funds, we do also receive grants from other funding sources with restrictions on them, which will include our school generated funds, the scholarships and bursaries, which are the amounts we receive from donors. We have some contractual amounts we're tracking for professional development, and then some travel as well. So on page 75, which shows the balances of the special purpose funds remaining, you will see the following numbers with regard to the fund balances carrying forward. So while we started the year with 2.1 million, our balance has actually increased to 2.9 and includes amounts carrying forward to such funds as our school generated, Community Links, French funds, affordability, and others. So any revenues that we receive that are targeted for these special purposes, the revenues we receive are actually deferred to the future time period when they are used, which is why you see the expenses sort of flowing in and out on the statement. And that follows the ministry directions and board regulations for reporting on those restricted contributions. Our capital fund, which begins on page 76, includes a few schedules. So they're numbered schedules 4 to 4D, and includes the district and ministry investments in the assets owned by us and the funds that are used to acquire them. So it will include the monies we receive for provincial grants, like the Aspen project being an example in this coming school year, and then the local capital transfers that are approved by the board as part of our capital refreshments. On Schedule 4A on page 77, you'll be able to view the purchases by asset class for the year. Our capital investments annually will include values for facilities, furniture and equipment, vehicles, and tech. And in some years, we will have land acquisitions or disposals. In total this year, our asset values increased 18 million. And we have also added a large work in progress on our statements this year for this office that was actually completed this summer. So at the end of the year, our capital fund reserve is around 38 million, of which 2.17 is the local capital balance that will be carrying forward to this current school year. So as of June, you can see within the local capital reserve, we still had some monies left for modular purchases, IT, facilities, and fleet, as well as some contingency. And again, these values are shown in note 18 to the financial statements. Each year, the board does approve annual transfers to local capital to fund our various ongoing refreshments. And these transfers are reviewed during every budget process. So Again, we'll be reviewing the transfers this fall as we work through our amended budget process. So in today's package, you will also find there's quite a large document called the Financial Statement Discussion and Analysis. It is a companion document that is intended to be read as you're reading the financial statements. It does provide quite a lot of valuable information, and it will explain some reasons for variances between budget to actual results, as well as the actual to prior year actual results. And that begins on page 89. So again, the committee has recommended that the Board of Education approve the financial statements as presented. And I think I will pass it over to Lenora, if that's okay, to go over her section of the auditor's report, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Muted, Lenora.
We perform a trend analysis to both comparison against budget as well as comparison to prior year. And if there are significant differences, go into further detail as to the rationale and reasons for those differences. And then in terms of capital assets, we review the capital additions during the course of the year and agree those additions to the invoices as well as amounts paid. Particularly this year with the construction costs incurred and work in progress, there was some significant expenditures made in the capital portfolio that we were able to test. In terms of overall results, there was no corrected adjustments noted as part of our audit process, so no errors that were subsequently modified in the financial statements. Draft 1 of the numbers are the same as the draft that you have in your package tonight. There are 2 uncorrected audit differences that are similar to last year. So these are not new items, and they're quite common within the school district sector as well. The first relates to an unrecognized asset for the surplus position in the school district's pooled benefit plans. So for cash flow reasons and budgeting purposes, the school district pays a monthly premium into these pooled benefit plans. And given the ebbs and flows in the usage of health benefits, sometimes there could be a surplus of premiums over draws, and sometimes there could be a deficit. At the end of fiscal 2024, there's an approximate surplus of $400,000, and that's not recognized within these financial statements. Reason being is that the value does tend to fluctuate on a month-to-month and year-over-year basis. As well, the surplus is fully restricted and can only be used to pay for benefits. So it would not be accessible for any other purpose, and as a result would not impact the overall operating surplus of the school district. The value itself, $400,000, is not material to the overall financial statements, and so it did not have a negative impact on our ability to issue our auditor's report. The second is a presentation difference on the statement of operations. You'll see 3 columns, a budget column, fiscal 2024 and fiscal 2023. The budget numbers are those that were presented and approved in the amended budget, whereas the accounting standards require that the original budget figures be presented. For good reasons, the amended budget includes confirmed enrollment, and from management's perspective is a better comparison of actual to budget. And so that's the reason why it's presented on the face of the statements. The original budget is included in the notes, and so all of the correct information is included in the financial statements, and that presentation item is primarily geography. About 90% of the school districts in BC do use the amended budget, similar to SD 71. So this is a common area in practice. The last item noted in the findings report here I wanted to touch on was any control observations. So we had some follow-on comments from last year's control observations in our report. The first relates to asset retirement obligations. This was a new accounting standard adopted last year. In the current year, management has implemented some procedures to monitor the reduction or remediation work that has taken place in schools. It is generally good practice to also consider the inflationary impact on an annual basis. So the cost to remove asbestos a year ago may not necessarily be the same cost today. That impact is, we are able to conclude and be comfortable it was not significant or material to the statements this year, but with each year that goes by, the compounding impact of inflation could become larger. So we did recommend that a process be put in place to evaluate that on an annual basis. And then secondly, a follow-on comment on last year's recommendation, financial oversight and training for school principals. So the finance team had been doing some really great work in terms of reviewing policies and procedures over school-generated funds. So these are the monies that are managed at the school level. Their plan was to implement 2 items. One was periodic school audits to take place by the finance team. So a member of the finance team going to review the procedures and provide any recommendations to the schools on accounting for those monies. And secondly was delivering regular training to the administrators to help communicate on a routine basis the policies, procedures, and expectations related to managing those funds. So the training aspect for principals, new principals, has been delivered as part of the beginning of the new school year, and the refresh on and regular communication around policies and procedures will continue to take place in fiscal 25. The periodic school audits is a work in progress. Due to capacity constraints, that was an item that was not yet implemented in fiscal 24, but remains high on the priority for fiscal 25 to start to do on a rotational basis some additional school work by the finance team. Those were the highlights I wanted to touch on from this report. Overall, I would say it was a very clean process. Having 2 uncorrected audit differences is not a significant volume at all, and you can see that none of those really impacted the day-to-day operation.
You've lost sound. Lenora, if you can hear us, just know that about 30 seconds ago, we stopped being able to hear you, if you're still with us. You froze? Yes?
It's pretty much.
Okay. Secretary Treasurer, this is so your agenda item. And so I guess I would start by, first off, thanking, before we get to questions, thanking the our entire finance team, yourself, Secretary Treasurer Carrie McVeigh, our Assistant Secretary Treasurer Jennifer Nelson, our Director Candace Hilton, and everybody else on the team that makes this happen. It is so crucial that our finances are in good, sound order, that our audit has indicated that everything is going as it should and as it needed to for all of the students. And if you could please pass on our thanks to Lenora and her team at KPMG if we don't get her back. And so I'm going to turn to the Secretary Treasurer to navigate the questions and who the question should go to. And I will turn to who has her hand raised.
So thank you. I'm a financial geek, and I really like this because it's totally understandable. I understand where our finances are. And once again, I'm going to echo what our board chair says. For the rest of us out in the summertime, out gallivanting and playing on the beaches, you, the financial team, are in your offices with numbers and pencils, and you're keeping us on track. And I also thank you, but I do have 2 questions. So, and it goes to one of the risks and uncertainty. We are a district that it's great that we're growing, but there's some concerns when you're growing, especially when it comes to funding modulars and classrooms and all the other stuff. That's a financial risk. And as we know in the news, you see many other districts that are dipping through operationals where, and this is money that's coming out of the classroom. So looking at the risk uncertainties, we're talking about enrollment growth and capital projects, and our district is, I think, at that risk at that. Are we still in a manageable position, or are we at the point now where we need to start looking at advocacy and ensuring that we're going to have enough money to support the growth and enrollment that we're having? And that was my first question.
You're the Secretary.
I'm not sure who, I'll go through you.
Sure, I will ask our Director of Finance, Candace Hilton, if she is able to answer that question.
Will do my best.
Welcome back, Lenora. Lenora.
Hi, Lenora. I think as a district and a senior team that we've been doing a great job at keeping informed about developments and things happening, as we heard earlier, and we'll hear probably a bit more information momentarily about some of the boundary work that's happening and those types of works. And we know that we're growing. And so that's been part of our local capital plans, and why we bring forward those recommendations to be putting some money away for those future needs. So while we do plan and hope to mitigate some of those risks in that fashion, that is why the board does have their policy for the use of their unrestricted contingency reserve. And that reserve, the 2% that's been restricted, is really to help us in times where there might be an emerging operating issue or an unrealized revenue issue, to help us in those times. So often when districts are faced with like a major non-recurring cost, or there's something emergent that's arisen, whether that be an event, a fire, weather-related, the situations that just can't be anticipated and budgeted for, or it might not be feasible to absorb it within the budget for the year, that's where we would look to access some of that reserve money for that reason, basically.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to Lenora.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to take any more questions from the trustees at this moment, because we've got Lenora back and we'd like her to finish whatever she needed to share with us. Backing up where you think you froze, to be able to finish your presentation to us. Thank you.
Sure. I'm not quite sure where I froze. Can you let me know whereabouts I lost connection? Is it after control observations?
I'm going to get somebody else to answer that.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Okay, great. Yes.
Okay, yes. So if I concluded on control observations, those were my final comments that I wanted to make. And hopefully I was able to share, and you're able to hear the appreciation we wanted to share with the finance team for all of their assistance in the audit process. Really great team to work with, very timely, very precise, and a high degree of quality in the work that they do.
Thank you very much. And what we shared when you weren't here was, on behalf of the board, our appreciation for the work that you and your team have done to audit our financial information and to present to us in a way that helps us to understand the process. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Now going back to trustee questions through the secretary treasurer, and I'll say, Trustee Caton, your question was a great question and probably could also have been asked and answered further in the agenda during the multi-year financial plan and presentation. So now we have a taster of what will be coming in an upcoming presentation. And just wondering if, I think, Trustee Maysack, you had your hand raised.
I did. I was just wondering if on page 62, the middle of page 62, for our accumulated surplus restricted for operations spanning multiple school years, if you could explain a little bit about how 2023 for district and program initiatives, we had 246,000, whereas in 2024 we have 1.617 million for district programs and initiatives. If you could explain a little bit to us what those district and program initiatives would be for the spanning the multiple school years.
So that will be through the secretary treasurer to direct answer that question.
Yeah, I'm going to look to Assistant Secretary Treasurer Jennifer Nelson or our Director of Finance, Candace Hilton, to see if either one of them, I believe you have some more detail in one of your files, so I'll pass it to one of you.
Okay, so district program and initiatives. So if you recall from the annual budget process, we had some pretty large appropriations to fund the current year, this school year's, the 2024-25 operation. During that process, we required $799,000 to balance our budget. So that's a big chunk of those dollars. That large of an appropriation was not required in the prior year budget. As well, there was $300,000 put aside for strategic planning initiatives. So that was another large appropriation of surplus this year. In comparison to last year was something that was not included. So that would be the main difference. And I just want to add too, there was one little part, Janice, I think of your question that I didn't answer around advocacy. I don't think I'm probably the best person to answer that question when it comes to like programs and services for students. However, one of the topics that you will typically hear from business services around modulars, because they are not funded directly through capital, and so we're having to set aside operating dollars for that. But the ministry has heard us. They know we're growing, which is why we received permission to move forward with Aspen. Yeah, we are receiving monies for some of those things that we do need.
Thank you. Just checking if any other trustee has a question. Secretary Treasurer, I think Trustee Caton has a question as well. But I just was checking to see if any other trustee did.
Going back to our capital projects and knowing that inflationary costs have on monies we spend on many of the things that we do in our district, looking at this building and other buildings, and I'm just wondering that we were on budget, there were no major blips or hiccups that we've had in some of the major capital projects we've had where has affected our budget, but everything's pretty well come in on budget and within what we've actually budgeted and allocated for. Is that my understanding? Just when I'm looking at this, I don't see any major blips.
No, were you referring to just in general?
This building
or
and
this building?
Yeah.
Yes, no, yeah, I mean, there's nothing significant that we would need to report in that regard.
Yeah, sure, I'm happy to move these motions, or this motion, that the Board of Education of School District 71 Comox Valley received the Audit Committee Board report dated September 17th, 2024 as presented, and that the Board of Education of School District 71 Comox Valley received KPMG LLP's report on the financial statement audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024, and that the Board of Education of School District 71 Comox Valley approved the 2023-2024 audited financial statements as presented.
And there's your seconder, Trustee McConnell-Keene, thank you. Discussion? And all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you, Lenora, and everybody involved in the finance team.
Thanks, Lenora.
Thank you.
Right, so now we need to move back into the agenda on page 3. We're on Roman numeral 4. For the estimated district enrollment and staffing report with Sheila Powell, our Director of Human Resources, and Jim Dixon, Associate Superintendent.
Thank you. I hope you don't mind if I just take the liberty to really ask everyone to stand up and sit down. That way you can hear me.
Are you doing 7-inning stretch now?
Yes. No, there we go. Now everyone will pay attention to my.
Would you like us to stay standing if
If
able?
you'd like to stay standing during this, you're welcome to. This is a brief verbal. So we've been closely tracking each school site, and this includes monitoring new developments and subdivisions in the Comox Valley as they come online. Our final September enrollment count will be confirmed this week, as we know. Really, as a summary, we are seeing modest growth in Comox Valley. It was anticipated that our brick and mortar schools throughout our district would grow this school year from 8,447, I'm going to give some exact numbers, towards a total of 8,612. As of Monday, we're nearing our prediction with 8,572 students. That's a growth of 125 in our brick and mortars. The other layer of enrollment in our school district is our career education program. And as mentioned previously, our online learning, which are expected to meet or exceed their projections throughout the year. Together with our brick and mortar schools, online learning and career education programs, we anticipate a total FTE throughout the year at approximately 11,000 for the 2024-2025 school year. This does not include, though, I just want to note, our 230 international students that have we've welcomed into our school district this school year. And that's my brief report. And look at that, everyone got a little exercise out of it too.
Thank you. Bet you might have wished that we'd snuck you in before the 8 o'clock event. So, but Sheila, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So thanks for an opportunity. I thought I'd start with providing you with just a little bit of overview of the scope of spring staffing in the HR department. So we facilitated a total of 218 teacher positions and 317 support staff post and fill, and then 6 non-unionized positions. So you can just get an idea of the scope of the work. At the conclusion of spring staffing, we have been left with just a few hard to fill positions. One of them is for an interpreter, and we have 7 unfilled education assistant positions currently. I anticipate that we should be successful at filling those within probably the next 30 days. But we're also busy recruiting to increase our complement of on-call staff, both in teaching and support staff, as well as continually filling unexpected leaves of absences of pre-existing employees. What you might also be interested to know is around the numbers as of September 20th, so Friday, about our overall number of employees. So currently, the total staff is 1,918 employees. Teachers make up 1,080, and 366 of those teachers are on-call staff. Support staff make up 744 of the 1,918, and 224 of those are on-call staff. And the remaining 94 are excluded staff. Those are folks like our principals and vice principals, our senior leaders and managers. So you might remember the last time I had the opportunity to report to the board in November 2023, our employee total was 1,885. So we have a little increase there of 33. But those are predominantly on-call staff. We're working really hard to make sure we have a strong complement of replacement staff so that our teachers and support staff can take the much needed breaks that they need to throughout the year. Well, that's me.
Thank you. I'm wondering, could you say again the number of positions right now that have been, did you call them hard to fill?
Yes, so there was 1 interpreter and 7 education assistants.
8.
Oh, 8 in total.
I wrote down 52 and I thought that can't be correct.
No, I'd be a bit more
together, but yeah.
Okay, great. Trustee McConnell. Question, if that's okay. Yeah. I'm just curious how it works, for my knowledge, in terms of meeting student need with 7 EAs that you're hopeful to fill within 30 days, you're saying. Is that, so for new students coming in, whether it be at the beginning of the school year or a month in, is it continuous sort of the need for EAs, or is it sort of quarterly through the year that we would sort of be seeing whether there was more need for EAs? And meaning with kindergarten intake and seeing that maybe the transition was significant for children, or just new students coming to our district, is that sort of assessed continuously, or is it just at different points in the year?
So we set our staffing based on the projected enrollment numbers when we started the year, and that's what those numbers are all about. And then, yes, we will absolutely, after 1701, and we look at all those numbers, we'll be looking at it with fresh eyes to see if we're still meeting the needs of students. I should add that the 7 unfilled EA positions, that does not mean that we don't have EAs in front of those students. It means that they're working in an on-call capacity. Some of those big numbers, some of those highly educated education assistants prefer to work in an on-call capacity. So they're filling that void while we find someone to work in a contractor assignment for the rest of the school year.
Are there questions or comments from Trustee Allinger?
I'm curious about the interpreter position. Is that a position that we've historically had and is not filled now, or is it a new position to represent changing demographics in our valley?
Really good question. We haven't had an interpreter for several years. Initially, it was because we didn't have a student that required that support. But 2 years ago, we did have the need. We have been working on recruitment for some time, trying to fill that need and working closely with BCPC. We are not the only district who is looking to find ways to make sure we have interpreters for our students with that need. That's new.
Thank you. Amazing numbers and amazing work of your team to make it all happen. To say all the time, because that appears to be what it's like. And thank you for the student numbers. That 11,000 FTE is pretty staggering. It's a pretty big number. Yeah. So thank you both very much. I don't see any other questions or comments from trustees. So thank you. And at this moment, we would like to entertain taking a short break until 9 o'clock. I don't know if we need a formal motion to recess to 9 o'clock. So we'd like to take a short break. It's 8:52. Just mindful of some of our team who can't leave the meeting because we're recording minutes or some of our tech pieces, and recognizing that it is almost the normal time we would end our meeting. So if we could just take a up to 8-minute break, and we'll convene back here at 9 p.m. 9:02. And Josh, are we live? We are live at 9:02.
That's right.
All right, thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to have a brief break. We're going to now move on to agenda item B, Roman numeral 5, the 2024-2027 multi-year financial plan and presentation by our Assistant Secretary Treasurer, Jennifer Nelson.
Thank you. So on pages 22 to 31 of the agenda, you'll find the multi-year financial plan report. This is a recent requirement of the ministry to prepare a multi-year financial plan, and it falls out of the financial planning and reporting policy. This is new for School District 71, so this is the first time we've prepared this report. And the intent is really to improve financial transparency and help our partners understand our budget process. It will summarize financial decisions that support the board's strategic priorities going forward. And it also allows for better monitoring of ongoing financial health. So those questions around our risk, this helps us to see ahead. And, if we have any upcoming financial challenges that we need to get ahead of today versus waiting for the annual budget process each year. So in the document on page 25, we've provided a high-level summary of the budget process to assist the users to understand how we're going to get to June and get a finally annual adopted budget bylaw. You'll notice in there we have moved up some timelines from previous budget processes. We're looking to establish that annual budget process in January with the board. So you'll have an opportunity in January to review our planning timeline and adopt that. And the intention really is to move it up so that we have a bit more time for engagement with our partners this year. So we've also included a page dedicated to the strategic plan, the new draft strategic priorities. So on page 27, you'll find that we've highlighted them there as draft. They were draft at the time we prepared this report. So as we move forward doing our annual financial planning and we start operationalizing these strategic priorities, we'll start incorporating any financial impacts as well into the future financial plan and itemize those for you in future financial plans. At this point, this was prepared simultaneously as your strategic priorities were being drafted. So just a few items to note as we were building this multi-year financial plan. It is not a budget. It's really a high-level estimated forecast based on the latest approved annual budget that was adopted in June. So we took that budget and then we forecasted out that way. It is for 2 future years beyond this current year, and it's for the operating fund only. We did not include capital or our special purpose funds in the financial plan. And then we will revisit this every year. Once we have an annual adopted budget, we'll take the latest information that we have and we'll incorporate that into our future year forecasts. So this does not require a bylaw. We'll just simply post it to our website and we will submit it to the ministry by September 30th, which is their deadline. And our hope is for this coming year to have this in front of you in June when we bring the annual budget bylaw. We would also have a draft of this for you. So we based this financial plan on the latest enrollment projections that were submitted to the ministry in February of 2024, and that was the basis for us building our 24-25 budget. So you've seen this before, and it's approximately about a 2% increase in enrollment that was submitted to the ministry over the 3 years. And as I move on to the next slide, for the assumptions that we use to build revenues, we based it on those enrollment projections, and we assumed a 2% increase to the per pupil rate that the ministry will give us per student. the ministry does not indicate those future year rates, so we're just having to make assumptions at this point that we would hope that we would get a 2% increase to that. We're assuming a 2% inflationary increase to our international revenue, international tuition revenue as well. And we've also incorporated a small reduction for investment income. As we know, the Bank of Canada is indicating reducing interest rates. So on the expense side, we've had to also make several assumptions here as well. We have unnegotiated salary increases for all employee groups. So we've taken our current year budget and we've assumed a 2% increase per year for the next 2 years for salaries and wages. We did not include the COLA, which is the 1% COLA. As you'll recall, when we were working on the annual budget for this year, we didn't have that information released from the ministry yet. So we had to just build our budget based on 2%, and we excluded that revenue. Whatever we end up receiving in revenue is what the cost is. So it becomes a wash, and we've taken that same annual budget with the 2% and built it out that way so that it's consistent and aligns with with your adopted bylaw that was submitted to the ministry. Also included in expenses, we've used 5% increases for transportation or busing. That's in alignment with our current contracts that we have in place. We are subject to renewal of that contract in the 2026 year. So once we have we receive that new contract, we'll build those future increases into future financial plans. And then we've also built minor increases for inflation into services and supplies, just noting that we don't receive funding from the ministry for that, but we do have to acknowledge that those are cost impacts that we have to absorb within our financial plan. And then finally, just noting that we are reinstating the local capital transfer. So when we prepared the 24-25 budget, we were able to reduce our transfer to local capital by $1 million in order to balance the current year budget. And that was based on looking at our local capital and the need for portables this current year. We had enough money to fund that. And so we made a decision to reduce it by $1 million. However, the caveat was, as we embark on the next budget year, we would likely have to reinstate that. So we have incorporated that back into the financial plan, and we're consistent with that across the next 2 years. So we've also had to project in some assumptions on cost savings in this financial plan. So as we built in all of the salary increases and the increased staffing due to enrollment increases as well, and inflation, as well as the local capital, we then had to keep an eye on the contingency reserve, ensure that we were keeping it at an appropriate level. And in order for us to balance the budget and keep and maintain the board's policy around 1.5% of operating expenses for your contingency, we did have to assume some cost savings throughout the future years in order to balance the budget. So it equates to approximately $1.4 million in those future years that we've reduced in order to show that we're balancing the budget, and we are reducing our reliance on surplus to fund our current year operating. So we've incorporated that, and we've just done it on a high level pro rata basis across where are we spending our money. So as a percentage of total expenses, we've distributed that across instruction, operations, and all the different types of expenses going forward. So this is just a snapshot of the actual financial plan table that you'll find within the document. It's on page 29 of your agenda. And I've just taken the top portion for you. As you can see, it's very high level. It's itemizing. You can see in the first column, that is actually our adopted annual budget. So you can see the total revenues, expenses, and then down on the bottom line, you can see that $799,714 that we're utilizing of the unrestricted surplus to balance the budget out. And then into the next year, projected 2025-26. You can see down in the lower section as well, under the local capital, it's the third line from the bottom. Our transfer to local capital is going from 1.4 up to the 2.4. So you can see that extra $1 million coming out there. And then we're only utilizing about $400,000 of our prior year surplus. So we're dropping it by half. And then into that third year, we're no longer relying on our unrestricted surplus to balance our budget. So there you can see that our revenues are going up and our expenses are going up, but the expenses aren't going up quite as much as the revenues. And that's in an attempt for us to get our less need to use surplus to balance our operations. And so here we have the lower portion of that same table or the same financial plan on page 29. And this is where we're just focusing in on our fund balance. So again, it's as we're incorporating all these revenues and expenses, we're watching that contingency reserve. We want to make sure that it doesn't drop below the 1.5% minimum balance. Ideally, we'd stay up in the 2% range, but we're acknowledging that we're working our way out of this reliance on prior year. But we're cautious not to drop below. So there you can see we start out with the $2.3 million, which you saw in the financial statements is where we're landing at the end of the year with our contingency reserve. And then as we potentially pull another 400,000 next year, we're dropping to 1.9 million and then staying there consistently. So in summary, the 2 years are manageable utilizing our accumulated surplus while we review our operating expenses, including service levels, departments and programs. We find efficiencies, potential new or increased revenues, and we realign funds to support your newly adopted strategic priorities. The district does continue to face inflationary cost pressures that are unfunded, so we're continually trying to do more with less. And we will need to be constantly and continually monitoring our operating expenses and revenues and adjusting to balance our budgets and future financial plans. And just to note that any adjustments made would come through the regular budget process, through a transparent process. There'd be engagement and opportunity for feedback from our partners and the public. And so with that, whoops, sorry, I'll open it up for questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to say that it's incredibly helpful as we are looking forward to know that even in a district with increasing enrollments, that this is where we're at, and in order for us to plan and as us to receive the recommendations in some of the planning that we have to do. And so I will open up the two trustees to see if you have any questions, noting again that trustees Peyton's earlier question was somewhat answered in this presentation, and I'll go to Trustee Isak.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch base about the reduction and if the work that we're going to be doing for that is going to be trying to find, inefficiencies, and we're going to continue the same, level of service to our students, or is this something where we're looking at removing programs, or where are we going to find that 1.4 million? And I know this is just for projections, and I think this is a fantastic way to go about this. And also, I love the plan of not relying on our surpluses. And again, we know money's things change every year. We're looking at possibly a government change. So I really love the proactivity of this and the conservative nature of this. But I just want to make sure as we're growing, and now we're talking about we're going to be, trimming things. So can we put everybody at ease at our trimming?
You'd like me to respond to that question, or?
Yes, you would like.
I'm happy to respond to that. Yeah, I think the reality is we need to look for, and I think that the budget, sort of the breakdown of the annual budget really is the process that we would be looking at to look for efficiencies and to look for ways that we might be able to make sure that we continue to support programs that make differences for kids. And so that would be, we'd be looking across the system for efficiencies that have the least impact on classrooms. And again, the other piece that we also will explore equally is additional revenue sources. So I think that while I don't anticipate widespread cuts, so to speak, I think it is a notice that every single one of us that are in leadership positions will be looking for places that we can save money to ensure that the kids are supported.
Trustee Caton and Trustee McConnell.
I do say when I see reductions, it kind of gets me a little concerned. I've been through reductions before, so I'm hoping that it's not going to be what in the past. But my question goes to the enrollment. And I know what we get for full-time brick and mortar students, NIDES Navigate students on that one, and I see we've got approximately 1,600. And I know they're paid, their district is paid differently. So my question to you on that one there is that 1662 full-time students that were getting paid that reduced amount, or how's that funding coming in for our NIDES Navigate? Because that does have a positive impact on our district, because that money does support some of the other things that we're doing. But I know that funding is a little bit different. So I just want clarification before I go through on NIDES Navigate funding per student, whether that's full-time students in NIDES Navigate or is it how's that funding?
I can answer it too if you want. Okay. Sorry, I was just going to say, I know they get it. There is a different rate. I don't want to bring it up on my screen right now because I'd be casting a bunch of detail, but there is definitely a different rate. It's less per student. However, we have seen increased in what we're anticipating. I think that was something too that our associate superintendent noted in his enrollment update. Maybe, and Candace may have something further to add to
there's more opportunity for counts as well, because we can receive funding for students as of February and May, unlike our brick and mortar schools. So there's the additional times where we can claim more students as well for the courses that they're taking.
Very quick, I'm just curious if 195 for FTE for international is more consistent with what we've seen in the past, because I know 230 for this year was mentioned earlier. Are we much up this year, or is that just a safe number to go with for a projection? Sorry, and that can be to whoever wants to.
I'll start. Historically, we have budgeted around 190, 195 FTE students. I believe what Associate Superintendent Dixon is referring to is likely a head count.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
We have great interest in the Comox Valley in our international programs, great reputation across the world. We've been averaging about 200 students in past years. We have a handful more this year that we were fortunately able to place, thanks to the generous people around the valley that have housed them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. And I just wanted to thank you again for the multi-year financial plan. It's amazing. And if it's okay, I'll move the motion that the Board of Education of School District 71 Comox Valley receive the multi-year financial plan dated September 24th, 2024, as presented. Again, it was a neat document. It's a cool thing that we have in the district now to be able to navigate this with us on our partner group, so thank you.
And that was seconded by Chris. Further questions or comments? All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you, that's carried. Secretary Treasurer, do you want to do something?
I know that there have been a lot of thank yous said this evening, but I just wanted to take a really quick moment to also thank the business services team, Josh, Molly, I want to make sure I don't forget anyone, Sheila, Candace, Jennifer. I'm even going to include consultant Ian in that, and Associate Superintendent Jay in that. You guys are all rock stars, and I realize again just how heavy this agenda is in business, but I know that each and every one of you realize that your work is to support education and that students are in the center, so I just thank you.
So I'm going to move down to agenda item number 12 on the bottom of page 3. Board standing committee reports. There is no open committee of the full report. On the audit committee section, moving on to 12C, which is the ad hoc policy committee. There is no report to the board. And we are working on trying to find our next meeting date, trying to find a date that aligns with the ad hoc policy committee. And so next, I'm going to move on to section 13 of our agenda package tonight, and which is board business and our board work plan. I have a couple of things to share on this. The board work plan has been a significant project with the purpose of making it more robust and, of course, updated for the 2025 year. The working plan outlines the board's annual work as governors of our education system and outlines how the corporate board fill its roles in this respect. Given it is a planning document, we note that the plan is subject to change based on the needs of the district, which change in a year. While some items are statutory and must occur by certain dates, other items may be moved. The official board business is reflected in board agendas, and more specifically, board minutes, which include motions passed by the board. For each month, there are titles in the board work plan that reflect the type of work that the board does throughout the year. These headings include committee, which is where the committee of the whole work is listed. Board business lists work of the board and is where any formal board decisions are made. Some items may be moved around based on need from board to committee, but formal board decisions, motions, are never done at committee of the whole meetings. The board believes that professional learning is important for trustees, and under this section you will see listed professional learning that we intend to engage in. We note, however, that a presentation during a committee or a board meeting may also fulfill our monthly professional learning. A good example of this would be a learning services presentation on equity in action. This learning will also serve as professional learning for trustees. Learning may take place through the school district or through conferences and events. Lastly, we have a section on community engagement, public recognition, and key dates. Community engagement is any engagement we do with our community partners through recognition of events, committee of the whole, and board business, along with a multitude of other events and engagement trustee attends. That is a bit of a longish preamble, but important, we believe, as we embark on our new year and our board work plan. I'd like to open up all my pages, all these white pages, the floor to trustees and/or our secretary treasurer or superintendent. If anybody has any comments or questions on our current board plan, recognizing that it's for our board plan for 2025, recognizing that it is a
I would like to thank everybody for their work on this, and especially the treasurer. It's been a long work in progress, back and forth, and I think this is going to be a fantastic tool for us to use to keep us on track throughout the year, and hopefully enable the community to anticipate what's happening and to stay on track with us as well. So thank you so much.
If I may, it was a pleasure going through this process with you all. And because of the level of engagement that you all had and the amount of feedback that you provided, although it was at times challenging to incorporate all of that feedback, you can really say that you own this work plan, that it's yours, it's reflective of who you are, and I think it's going to really, in a more robust way, provide a plan over the next year that you'll be really proud of. So, like, it really hats off to you.
Thank you. Seeing no, go ahead, Vice Chair. Or what were you going to say?
Can I just add one piece? Just acknowledging that we're here on the 24th of September with a brand new approved action or design principles with values, and just an acknowledgement that in meetings leading up to this, that the intention of having this board work plan really fulfills the values around integrity and high ethical standards through transparency, honesty, and accountability. And I know that in some of our other work in camera and in our work sessions around trying to work in circle and centering learning in everything that happens. So I'm just appreciative of the fact that these values are not generated for everyone else. They're generated and lived out here at this table, and setting that stage and example as the rest of us follow along and ensure that all of our work is in alignment with those values that were approved officially earlier this evening.
Jeremiah always says it better than I'm going to say it. So I'll leave that and move the motion that the Board of Education of School District 71 Comox Valley approve the 2024-25 board work plan as presented.
And seconded by Trustee McConnell-Keene. Seeing no further comments or questions, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. And this, I would say, reflects our commitment to doing the work, and absolute thanks to navigating the nuance to get it to the state that it's at. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know what you mean, because I know what some of my emails look like. What about this? What about that? All right, so moving on to pages 135 and 136. I'm wondering if we would have a trustee move the following motion. Go ahead.
That the Board of Education of School District Number 71 Comox Valley approve the 2024-25 Board Committee of the Whole meeting schedule and the 2024-25 Board meeting schedule as presented.
Thank you. Trustee Masak, seconded by Vice Chairperson Howe. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. And then just briefly, this weekend, the trustees and the secretary treasurer and our superintendent engaged in a learning working session where we went through a board performance review. It we didn't pilot a new program, but we were the first board to walk through a new board performance review program, and we are looking forward to actioning some of the items that came out of that together. And next is moving on to the last page of the agenda, page 5, the BCSTA advocacy letters. So the BCSTA has, in its role as an advocacy organization, is encouraging boards of education to submit letters to our MLA candidates on key items that are combined key items that are of note for boards of education across the province, and specifically for individual boards of education. And so this is the opportunity for the trustees to engage in discussion on this agenda item with a potential motion based on the discussion. Or the motion comes first and the discussion happens during the motion.
Sure, I can move the motion and then we can discuss it. That
Great,
the Board of
thank you.
Education of School District 71 Comox Valley sent advocacy letters to the MLA candidates seeking election in the electoral areas of Courtenay Comox and Mid-Island Pacific Rim.
Altinger, thank you. Discussion. We have it's a great opportunity that comes around once every election period to lobby our MLA candidates who will, one of each of them in the 2 electoral areas will be our MLA for the upcoming term. Trustee McConnell-Keen and then Trustee Caton.
I know we have, we've done advocacy for this in the past, and I think whether we continue to or whether we go a different route, it was important to not only in our discussions, but to hear Director of Finance Hilton also bring up the matter around the extreme cost of portables within operating budgets. So I only bring that up, whether we choose to use this as an opportunity to highlight that again, knowing it's something that I'm sure is heard a lot, but in a new way, however we choose to go about it, it's important to hear that that comes from your line of work as well right now, and that it's being worked on everywhere. A lot of money.
So the plan that we had this evening regarding the financial and our work plan, talking about things to look for, but the one thing the Ministry of Education has done for years is that basically you have to have 23 portables on your school before they actually fund a new school. And I think at some point, the Ministry of Education, I'm looking at Surrey, I'm looking at Sioux, looking at other school districts, I really would like the Ministry of Education, if they know your district is expanding, if you know that you're going to continue growing, you can add 5 portables this year and 5 portables next year, to reevaluate and reconnect their capital. This is probably through the budget officers, the process on how they fund and when they determine when a district needs a new school. I would like for them to, if you're growing every year, let's look at funding the new school before you have your 25 or your 30 portables. So that program needs to be relooked at, and building new schools after students arrive it's past tense. It's like this for about 20 years, and I think that process needs to change. So the Treasury Board needs to reevaluate how they fund new schools. So I think as an advocacy, I think that would be supported not by our district, but provincially by other boards facing the same impact that we have. Fund the new schools. If you know the students are coming, rather than wait for the 40 portables in your district. And I'm kind of exaggerating 40 portables, but I'm also thinking of Surrey and look what they're going through. They need to fund those new schools. I see this district adding a new elementary school in the next few years, and I'd like to see them planning that now rather than waiting till after the fact.
One of the other things that we've discussed for advocacy work is the funding of inflation annually for school districts as We have no, there's no mechanism for inflation currently in our operating budgets, which is really critical when our rates are just going through the roof. So I think that that's maybe something important.
A couple other areas that have risen through the province, and Trustee Caton, you would be aware of this because you were on a working group, is capital and deferred maintenance funding. And another item is inclusive education and student success.
I'd add to the list a commitment to extend the Feeding Futures food funding. That's had an enormous impact on students in our district, and I think it's been generally very well received by districts across the province. It's a strong and important initiative, and I think knowing that it would continue beyond the initial 3 years would be of great assistance in terms of planning and implementing.
What I'm hearing is we have the opportunity to create a robust letter to our MLA candidates, which there may be other items that we add, because this is our opportunity now to be having this discussion. And we've not had this discussion in any other forum but here.
And I'm wondering if also reaching out to our educational partners, stakeholders, and rights holders, and in having them also be part of our advocacy program, because this also impacts them. So I think that while it's our board letter, I also think reaching out to our community and seeing if we're on the right track also. Like, is there something there that they would like us to advocate on behalf of themselves? So like, it's just that part of that in community engagement process that we talk about.
My only wondering would be our election day, the final day to vote for the candidates is October 19th. That's not a very big timeline, though we could draft our letter and see if our partner groups would like to sign onto it. I'm not sure how much time we would have, given it's the 24th of September. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. We likely would have needed to start that in June. That's my only worry.
Time crunch is unfortunate where we are, but just consideration.
Absolutely. I think we will consider, if the motion passes, how we would navigate the creation of the advocacy letter in the time that we have to be able to provide it to the candidate. Are you moving the motion?
No, it's already been moved.
It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. We're in the discussion. We have another idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was thinking that if we put together a letter, while maybe our partner groups, depending on their support, we could also have the potential for the use of our concepts for others to share with if they are in belief as well, to send their own letters to the MLAs as well. We could offer a template for such.
Okay.
We're short on time.
All right. See no further discussion. Is there further discussion?
I am just thinking about the fact that in the last 2 years, we've also brought motions to the BCST in relation to advocacy one around further strengthening the provincial response to gender-based violence among students, and also to increase capital funding to address both new builds and retrofitting old buildings in relation to meeting the greenhouse gas emission targets school districts and all public organizations have had imposed on them. So there's a long list, it seems.
Robust letter, a robust letter. Of the motion as presented. It's carried. Thank you. All right. Further on the agenda, in the agenda package on pages 137 and 138, the trustee report from the Indigenous Education Council meeting that was held in September. And further to board correspondence, we have one piece of board correspondence that was sent to us by the Métis Nation of British Columbia. And so we have, I'm now turning this over, actually sort of on time, even though it's 9:42, to public question period to the board at 9:42. And I'm first going to ask if there are any questions. There are no electronic questions that have been provided to us already. And I will ask the public that is still here. There were more, and now there are not as many, but for the public that are here tonight and have stayed until 9:43, do you have a question related to the great information in our meeting tonight?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. We have 3 questions. The first question is to the board chair. Potentially, I'll let you, Vivian, how you would like to. In the increase in the ICY funding from 2023 to 2024, we see an increase of from $205,714 to $469,821. And we're just curious if this increase is due to staffing.
Can you tell me what page that is on?
I absolutely
only because I saw the superintendent looking, and I don't have.
I will ask the chair.
It was, yes, that was, yes.
So what page is that on, do you think?
Page 68.
Would you-
Well, you can see it there, or 62. 62, 60.
It's 68 where I saw it.
Superintendent, do you have an answer to that right now? Pardon me?
I don't.
See why.
Okay. So, Director Hilton has the answer. Okay.
Wonderful. If Director Hilton.
Yeah, so the question relates to page 62 in the restricted due to the nature of constraint on funds in the accumulated surplus note. So the question is about the integrated child and youth teams funding and the difference between the restriction and the year. The difference between the years is actually just the timing of the revenue received from the ministry. So they actually sent us an installment of our funding for this school year in June, which they had not done in the previous year. So the funding amount and the positions it's supporting has not changed. I do believe we're receiving extra funding this year to actually add a counselor, but not all the details have been confirmed, and that funding was not a part of this restriction on the note. Just a timing difference.
Chair, I'll maybe just have Superintendent Lamoureux just to add a little bit.
Yeah, just we've received funding, wrote a grant through a joint write-up between the Foundry MC, Family Smart, and ourselves. And we were given full funding to have another clinical counselor that can focus with our Ks to grade 4 or 5-ish. And so that hiring process is happening as we speak. In the minute that mental health clinician will have a third added to our district to be able to support students in the Comox Valley.
Okay, go ahead.
Just through the board chair, reviewing the increase of spots at Aspen. What is the plan for parking considering it's a residential neighborhood? Has that, I didn't, in the plans we observed, we didn't really see, there'll be increased staff and then thus increase. Has that been taken into account at all? Just out of curious.
Defer that question to our Director of Operations.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So part of the planning process is working with the town of Comox and the design professionals to determine the amount of parking spaces that are appropriate for the amount of staff. So we're looking at doing a phase plan where we do the building first and then exploring the parking as a phase 2 to that. So when we provide further plan updates, we'll include what those parking plans are shaping up to look like.
Yeah, so is parent parking, through the chair, I hear staff, I'm just curious about.
When I say parking, I'm referring to like general. I don't want to say a certain amount of staff versus public.
The third question would, hearing upon your discussion regarding advocacy letters to the MLA candidates, would you be interested in knowing that DPAC is partnering with QP and the CDTA to run an education forum, so just about education for all of the proposed candidates in both of the electoral districts, which is happening on October 2nd at 6:30 p.m. in the Daniel Multipurpose Room. And you talked about some advocacy around questions. Questions can be submitted for the candidates, and we would welcome all and everyone to submit questions. Just curious if that information would interest you.
It's a very creative, informational question. Thank you. Very creative.
Thank you.
Yeah. And where can we find more information on that?
More information will be posted to our DPAC Facebook page. It has been posted in the Comox Valley Record, and also the district is wonderful about including DPAC information on the school district website, and so maybe we will ask the IT department to add that poster to that page just as a hot special for the next week and a half.
So did you maybe ask us if we wanted to submit some of our questions for you? Is that what I was hearing?
Great opportunity. You would like to.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Janice, I think we found a way to do our community engagement in the moment. So thank you for raising that, and thank you for connecting the dots and tying the bow on that. That was lovely, especially at a very late hour this evening. Was that all of your questions?
All of our questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. We have one, lost total track of my agenda. Before we adjourn, we have one final opportunity this evening. So our newest associate superintendent, Joe Heslop, is going to share with us. Joe?
Thank you. And when Jeremy asked me, I was singing earlier in the court because I was feeling some heavy feelings just around the week. And when he asked me to sing today, of course I said yes, be great. But as this meeting's gone on, I'm thinking about changing my song to "We're Here for a Good Time, a Long Time." Right, I gotta start with a joke. I'm holding this here because I'm trying to wake up the drum. It's been sitting against the wall, and it'll sometimes get a little flappy, so you gotta put it next to your body, warm it up. Skin gets tighter. I'm gonna sing a song that's hopefully gonna send us off in a good way. I think about Donna Mitchell's words when she opened us up tonight, and this is a hard time for a lot of people that I care about and love. This song here is called the Co-Ed Song. It's a public song. I'm allowed to sing it. I spoke with Chief Johnny Williams from Scowlitz First Nation. This is a song that came from Lummi and then came up through Selwyn, and lots of folks in the valley sing this song. Lots of folks in the Indigenous community would likely know this song. If you know it and you're female, you'll know when to come in and join me, but we'll see. If not, this is a learning session. We'll do it later.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Education of School District 71, Comox Valley adjourn this meeting.
Second. All those in favor?